You know what's wild? Broke people are saving more money than wealthy people right now. I know that sounds completely backwards, but hear me out before you click away, because what I'm about to share is going to flip everything you think you know about saving money when you're struggling. The median American has exactly $600 in emergency savings. $600. That's it. That's the middle point. Half of the country has less than that. And honestly, when I first saw that statistic, I thought there's no way that's real. But then I dug deeper and things got even more depressing. 37% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. Not won't, can't. A blown tire, a broken phone, a surprise vet bill, and they're done. Game over. But here's where it gets interesting. The people who are actually building wealth right now, the ones going from broke to financially stable, they're not doing it with some complicated investment strategy or side hustle. They're using one stupidly simple rule that nobody talks about, and I'm going to show you exactly what it is. Hi, I'm Matt, and on this channel, I break down personal finance in a way that actually makes sense for real people, not just trust fund kids or tech bros making 200 grand. If that sounds useful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we're diving deep today. Now, before we get to the rule itself, I need to address the elephant in the room. You're probably thinking, Matt, I'm broke. I can barely afford rent. How am I supposed to save anything? And I get it. I've been there. I've had $17 in my checking account with 3 days until payday. I've eaten ramen for a week straight because that's all I could afford. I've ignored my bank account app because I was too scared to look at the number. But here's the thing that changed everything for me, and it's going to sound crazy at first. The reason you can't save money isn't because you don't make enough. It's because you're trying to save too much. Wait, what? Did I just say you're trying to save too much when you're broke? Yes, and I'm going to prove it to you in about 90 seconds. But first, let me tell you what doesn't work. Every personal finance expert tells you the same thing. Save 20% of your income, build a 6-month emergency fund, max out your retirement accounts. And if you're making $30,000 a year, you hear that and you just laugh because 20% of $30,000 is $6,000 a year, $500 a month. Are you kidding me? That's rent money. That's food money. That's the car payment you can't afford to miss. So you know what most people do? Nothing. They save 0% because if they can't hit 20%, why bother trying at all? It's like deciding not to go to the gym because you can't work out for 2 hours. The all or nothing mindset destroys more financial lives than almost anything else. This is where the 1% rule comes in, and I'm calling it the 1% rule, but honestly, it's so simple it almost sounds stupid. Here it is. Save 1% of your income. That's it. 1%. If you make $30,000 a year, that's $300 for the entire year, $25 a month. If you make $50,000, it's $500 a year, $42 a month. If you make $20,000, it's $200 a year, $17 a month. You're probably thinking, Matt, that's nothing. What's $25 going to do? And you're right, $25 isn't going to change your life tomorrow. But let me ask you this, how much are you saving right now? If the answer is 0, then $25 is infinitely more than 0. Literally, you can't calculate the percentage increase from 0 to 25 because you can't divide by 0. It's infinite growth. But here's the real psychology behind why this works. When you're broke, saving money feels impossible because you're constantly in survival mode. Every dollar matters. Every expense is a calculation. Should I buy the name brand or generic? Can I skip lunch today? Do I really need to turn the heat on or can I just wear a hoodie? And then some financial guru tells you to save $500 a month and your brain just shuts down. It's too big, too overwhelming, too impossible. So you save nothing. But $25? That's one dinner out. That's 3 fancy coffees. That's the streaming service you forgot you were paying for. Your brain can handle $25. It doesn't trigger that same panic response. Let me give you a real example. According to a recent study, 53% of Americans withdrew money from their savings this past year. The average withdrawal? $2,900. But here's the kicker. Most of those people didn't have an emergency. They just ran out of money for regular expenses and had to raid their savings to survive. You know what that tells me? People are trying to save too much too fast. They force themselves to put away $300 a month, then they can't pay their electric bills, so they withdraw $400 from savings. They're running on this hamster wheel of save and withdraw, save and withdraw. It's exhausting and it gets them nowhere. The 1% rule breaks that cycle because even when money gets tight, you can usually find that 1%. You can skip one coffee, you can use a coupon once, you can sell one thing on Facebook Marketplace, and suddenly you're not failing at saving, you're succeeding every single month. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, Mad, fine, I can save 1%, but that's still only $300 a year. I need way more than that for an emergency fund. And you're absolutely right. But here's what nobody tells you about the 1% rule. It's not meant to be permanent. It's meant to be your starting line. See, most people fail at saving because they try to go from zero to hero overnight. They read some finance blog that says you need $10,000 in savings, and they're like, cool, I'll just conjure 10 grand out of thin air. When really they should be asking, how do I go from 0 to 100, then 100 to 500, then 500 to 1,000? The 1% rule gets you moving, and once you're moving, once you have that momentum, something shifts in your brain. You start seeing money differently. You start noticing the stupid stuff you waste money on. You start thinking, hey, if I can save $25, maybe I can save $35. Let me give you some real numbers from this year. The personal saving rate in America right now is sitting at about 4.7%. That's the average across everyone. But here's the interesting part. During the pandemic in 2020, it shot up to over 30%. Why? Because people were scared. They were uncertain. They cut back on everything and saved like crazy. Then in 2023, it dropped back down to under 5%. Why? Because life went back to normal and people started spending again. But what happened to all those people who built that saving habit during the pandemic? A lot of them kept saving. Maybe not 30% anymore, but way more than they did before. That's the compound effect of habits, not compound interest, compound habits. The 1% rule builds the habit without breaking your budget. And here's something else that's crazy. 2/3 of Americans say they don't believe they'll ever save enough to feel financially secure. 2/3. That's not a money problem. That's a mindset problem. Because financial security doesn't start with a number. It starts with a habit. And the smallest viable habit is 1%. Think about it this way. You're already wasting more than 1% of your income. You just are. Everyone is. That subscription you forgot about, that's probably 0.5% right there. The late fees on bills because you lost track of the due date, another 0.25%. The impulse buy at the checkout line, the food you threw away because it went bad, the gas you wasted driving around looking for parking. We're all hemorrhaging money on stupid stuff. The 1% rule just asks you to redirect a tiny fraction of that waste into something that actually helps you. What percentage are you currently saving? Seriously, think about it for a second. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance it's somewhere between 0 and maybe 5%. And if it's 0, the gap between 0 and 1 is way smaller than the gap between 0 and 20%. Let me hit you with another stat. In 2025, the average American says they save about 23% of their take-home pay, but the median, 15%. And 10% of working Americans aren't saving anything at all. Not 0.5%, not 1%, actually 0. That could be you. And if it is, I'm not judging, but I am telling you that the gap between 0 and 1 is the most important gap you'll ever close. Because once you prove to yourself that you can save, once you see that number in your savings account growing even by $25 a month, something clicks. All right, we're at the halfway point, and if you're still here, that tells me you're actually serious about this. So let me show you exactly how to implement the 1% rule in a way that actually works. First, you need to automate it. I cannot stress this enough. If you try to manually transfer money to savings every month, you will forget, or you'll convince yourself you need it for something else. Your brain is way too good at justifying short-term spending over long-term saving. Here's what you do. Figure out your 1%. If you make $3,000 a month, that's $30. If you make $2,000, it's $20. Whatever your number is, set up an automatic transfer from checking to savings the day after you get paid. Not a week later, not when you have extra. The day after payday. Why the day after and not the same day? Because sometimes paychecks post at weird times and you don't want the transfer to bounce because it tried to process before your paycheck cleared. Give it 24 hours, then move that money. Now here's the key. That money goes into a high-yield savings account, not a regular savings account at your bank that pays 0.01% interest. A high-yield savings account that's actually working for you. Right now, in late 2025, you can find high-yield savings accounts paying around 4% APY. Some even hit 4.5 or 5%. Compare that to the national average of 0.39%. That's over 10 times more interest. Let's do the math. If you save $25 a month in a regular savings account at 0.39%, after 1 year you'll have $300 and about $6 in interest. Congrats, you can buy a soda with that interest. But if you put that same $25 a month into a high-yield savings account at 4%, after 1 year you'll have $300 and about $6 in interest. That's 10 times more. And yeah, $6 isn't life-changing, but it's free money and it compounds. Speaking of compound interest, let's talk about what happens if you stick with the 1% rule for a while. Let's say you make $40,000 a year. 1% is $400 a year, or about $33 a month. If you save $33 a month in a high-yield savings account at 4% for 5 years, you'll have about $2,100. Not bad. That's a decent emergency fund starter. That's a plane ticket somewhere. That's a buffer. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people who start with the 1% rule don't stay at 1%. Once they see it working, once they see that account growing and they're not missing the money, they bump it up, maybe to 2%, then 3%, then 5%. If let's say after year 1 you go to 2%, after year 2 you go to 3%, by year 5 you're at 5%. Now you're saving about $167 a month, and because you ramped up slowly, it doesn't feel like a huge sacrifice. Your lifestyle adjusted gradually. If you follow that path, starting at 1% and increasing by 1% each year until you hit 5%, after 5 years you'll have somewhere around $8,000 saved. That's a real emergency fund. That's life-changing money when you're starting from zero. And I didn't even factor in the potential for income increases. Most people's income goes up at least a little bit over 5 years. If you're making $40,000 now and you're making $45,000 in 3 years, but you're still saving the same percentage, you're automatically saving more dollars without even thinking about it. This is the magic of the 1% rule. It's not about the money you save in month 1, it's about building a system that grows with you. Now let's talk about the really fun part. What happens when you combine the 1% rule with actual investing? Because here's the thing. Saving money in a high-yield savings account is great for your emergency fund. It's safe, it's liquid, you can access it whenever you need it. But if you want to actually build wealth, eventually you need to start investing some of that money. I'm not saying you should invest your first $300. Build your emergency fund first. Get to at least $1,000 in savings, preferably more. But once you have that cushion, once you have that buffer, you can start thinking about putting some of your savings into index funds. Quick refresher on index funds if you're new to this. An index fund is basically a bundle of stocks that tracks a specific market index, like the S&P 500. Instead of picking individual stocks and hoping they go up, you buy a tiny piece of 500 different companies all at once. It's diversified, it's relatively low risk, and historically it grows about 7 to 10% per year on average. The S&P 500 is up about 17% this year. Last year, it was up 25%. The year before that, 26%. Now, past performance doesn't guarantee future results, obviously. There will be down years. But over the long term, like 20 or 30 years, the stock market has always trended up. So let's say you follow the 1% rule for 2 years, build up a little emergency fund, and then you start putting half of your monthly savings into an S&P 500 index fund. Just half. The other half still goes to your emergency fund. If you're saving $40 a month total, that's $20 a month into index funds. Doesn't sound like much, right? But let's say you do that for 20 years, and the index fund averages 8% annual returns. After 20 years, you'd have about $11,800 just from $20 a month. That's the power of compound interest over time. Your money makes money, and then that money makes more money, and it snowballs. And remember, this is assuming you never increase your savings rate. If you start at 1% and work your way up to even 5% over a few years, and you're investing a chunk of that, you could be looking at $50,000 or more in 20 years. $50,000 from starting with $25 a month when you were broke. Let me show you another way to think about this. Every dollar you save today is actually worth way more in the future. If you put $1 into an index fund today and it grows at 8% per year, in 20 years, that dollar is worth $4.66. In 30 years, it's worth $10.06. So when you save $25 this month, you're not really saving $25. You're saving $117 in 20 years or $252 in 30 years. That's the future value of your money. This is how broke people become not broke people. Not by winning the lottery, not by getting a massive raise, by saving a tiny amount consistently and letting compound interest do the heavy lifting. And look, I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying you won't have setbacks. Life happens. Cars break down, people get sick, emergencies pop up. But if you have even a small emergency fund because you followed the 1% rule, those emergencies don't completely destroy you. You might have to dip into savings, but you're not going into debt. You're not taking out a payday loan at 30% interest. The 1% rule is about building resilience. It's about giving yourself options. It's about going from I'm completely screwed if anything goes wrong to I can handle this. So, before we wrap up, let me tell you the biggest mistakes people make with the 1% rule. Mistake number 1, they save it in their checking account. Listen, if your savings are sitting in checking, they're not savings. They're just money you haven't spent yet. Move it to a separate account. Make it slightly annoying to access. That friction is your friend. Mistake number 2, they try to save 1% and also do 10 other financial goals at the same time. They're trying to save, invest, pay off debt, build an emergency fund, and start a side hustle all at once, and they burn out in 3 weeks. Pick one thing, master it, then add the next thing. Mistake number 3, they give up after a bad month. You're going to have a month where you can't save, where an emergency eats up everything and you have to pull from savings, or you just can't put anything away. That's fine. That's life. The 1% rule isn't about being perfect every single month. It's about the long-term trend. Mistake number 4, they never increase their percentage. If you're still saving 1% 3 years from now, you're doing it wrong. The whole point is to start small and scale up. After 6 months, try 2%. After a year, try 3%. Keep pushing. And the biggest mistake? Thinking that 1% isn't enough to matter. I'm telling you, it matters. Not because of the dollar amount, but because it proves to yourself that you can do it. And once you prove you can save 1%, you can save 2%, then 5%, then 10%. Remember that statistic I mentioned at the beginning? Broke people are saving more than wealthy people? Here's what I meant. People who are struggling, who are living paycheck to paycheck, when they do save money, they appreciate it more. They guard it more carefully. They're more intentional about it. Wealthy people often save automatically because they have excess, but broke people who save, they're making a choice, a sacrifice, and that builds a different kind of financial discipline. So, if you're broke right now, or even if you're just struggling, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not doomed. You're not too far behind to catch up. You just need to start. And the 1% rule is the easiest, lowest friction way to start that I've ever found. $25 a month, $33, $17. Whatever your 1% is, that's your starting line. And 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you're going to look back and be so grateful you started today. Because financial freedom doesn't start with having money. It starts with the decision to save money, even if it's just 1%.